It is the 25th of February 2014. I'm Kamene, Goro, and many thanks for joining us on Ebru African News this afternoon. Now we start off our bulletin in the Central African Republic, where the violence has displaced nearly a quarter of the country's 4.6 million inhabitants. The IDP situation gets more dire every day, with scarce basic supplies, both medical and sustenance-based. International relief efforts have, however, increased, with a visit by UNAIDS Executive Director Michel Sidibe on Saturday to the country rocked by probably the worst sectarian violence in African modern history.
10 days ago, the United Nations allocated an additional $10 million from its Emergency Humanitarian Fund to support the most critical relief operations in Central African Republic, where hundreds of thousands were uprooted by violence across the country. This came as the second $10 million allocation in about 2 months from the UN Central Emergency Response Fund to support aid efforts in CAR, which has plunged into chaos and deadly violence following months of political crisis and lawlessness. The executive director of UNAIDS, Michel Sidibe, has witnessed the desperate conditions for internally displaced persons in the Central African Republic. He flew to Bosengoa in the northwest part of the country on 20th February with Under-Secretary General of the United Nations and Emergency Relief Coordinator Valerie Emmels and other senior high-level officials. Bosengoa has suffered a wave of sectarian violence, and the city, which once had some 50,000 residents, is now nearly empty as people have left their homes to escape the violence between Muslims and Christians. Now most of the city's former residents live in 2 separate sites, one for Muslims and the other for Christians. Life at the IDP sites is hard, while numbers fluctuate. It is estimated about 36,000 Christians are on the grounds of the Catholic mission of Saint Antoine de Padoue, and about 1,200 Muslims are living in a school called Libat. Conditions are very difficult, with food, clean water, medical care and proper sanitation in short supply. The coming rainy season is likely to worsen conditions.
About 500 African migrants stormed a triple barbed wire border fence that divides the Spanish territory of Melilla from Morocco, with about 100 making it over. Now, the migrants targeted 2 different sections of the border and were very violent as they used sticks and threw rocks at Spanish and Moroccan police.
It was the latest in a series of coordinated assaults by African migrants on the border of Melilla, which, along with fellow Spanish territory of Ceuta, was the only European Union land borders with Africa. Around 100 of the roughly 500 migrants involved in the border assault managed to enter Melilla. The Moroccan Interior Minister said that at least 27 people had been injured, including 13 members of the security forces, hit by rocks that the migrants hurled at them as they stormed the border fence. Moroccan police arrested around 100 migrants, including 14 who were taken to hospital in the nearby town of Nudur, suffering injuries caused by the barbed wire that the Spanish authorities had placed on top of the barrier as a deterrent. On February the 17th, around 150 African migrants made it into Melilla in another mass assault by migrants bearing sticks and stones. At least 14 migrants drowned in Morocco waters on February the 6th while trying to enter Ceuta by sea after several hundred tried to storm the land border. The spike in the arrival of migrants to Melilla in recent weeks has caused the population of the interment city in the Spanish outpost to swell. The center, which has room for 480 people, currently houses more than 1,000 migrants, depending on treaties between Spain and the country of origin of each migrant. Some are repatriated and others are allowed to enter into Spain.
Moving to the western parts of Africa, Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan says that his decision to suspend the central bank governor had nothing to do with the governors exposing corruption in the oil sector. Now, Jonathan suspended Governor Lamido Sanusi last week over allegations that he had mishandled the bank's budget.
President Goodluck Jonathan defended his decision to suspend a central bank governor, saying he'll get his job back once cleared by the board and the Financial Reporting Council.
The CBN governor is the chief executive of CBN, and at the same time he is chairman of the CBN board. So if there are allegations about the CBN governor, it becomes a problem. for you to look into it. And there are issues raised based on the 2012 audit reports. And for you to look into those issues, we feel that for you to be sure of what you are doing, CBN governor can just step aside.
Sanusi, due to step down in June, was becoming an increasingly vocal critic of the government's record on tackling corruption. The move caused a panic sell-off in the financial markets. Sanusi had been presenting evidence to Parliament that he said showed the state oil company, Nigeria National Petroleum Corporation, the NNPC, failed to pay a $20 billion it owed to federal government coffers. Fueling speculations, his suspension was an attempt to silence a whistleblower. Jonathan denied the $20 billion could have gone missing from state oil revenues.
First of all, spoke about $49.8 billion. Everybody was alarmed. We got calls from all over the world. So in Nigeria, amounts of money, more than the total foreign aid coming into Africa, could just disappear in Nigeria. We were all alarmed. Finally, Sanusi said it was 12 billion. Later on, said it is 20 billion.
Sanusi has said he will challenge his suspension in court.
In Europe, Ukraine's interim president Alexander Techinov is due to form a unity government days after the ousting of President Viktor Yanukovych. Meanwhile, UK Foreign Secretary William Hague and his US counterpart are due to meet in Washington later to discuss emergency financial assistance to Kyiv, which is still in desperate need of funding.
As they mourn the past in Ukraine, they await a new future as world powers weigh in Monday. European Foreign Policy Chief Catherine Ashton is in Kiev, meeting with opposition leaders to discuss measures to shore up the ailing economy. With former President Viktor Yanukovych on the run, it's unclear what shape a future government will take. But there's little doubt about its financial needs. British Foreign Secretary William Hague will head to Washington for talks on Ukraine.
Ukraine's financial situation is very serious, and without outside assistance may not be sustainable.
The finance ministry in Ukraine says it needs $35 billion in foreign assistance over the next 2 years, and appealed for urgent aid in the coming weeks. White House spokesman Jay Carney says the U.S. will offer help.
The United States, working with partners around the world, stands ready to provide support for Ukraine as it takes the reforms it needs to get back to economic stability.
The unrest began last fall when Yanukovych shunned a European trade deal in favor of an economic package from Russia. Now Russian Economic Development Minister Alexei Ulyukayev says the next $2 billion installment is in, quote, standby status.
Well, it depends on who will be the responsible figures, because it's a very big amount of money. When IMF or other responsible institutions provide support, it asks for the conditions and asks about the partners. So the same will do us.
So far, Russia has provided $3 billion in economic aid to Ukraine out of the $15 billion pledged.
A UN official has visited the Yarmouk camp for Palestinian refugees near Damascus, where people are desperate for food. Now more than 20,000 people have been living there because of endless fighting, and their plight is increasingly desperate.
A UN official visits the Yarmouk camp for Palestinian refugees near Damascus Monday. Filippo Grandi, the Commissioner General of the United Nations Relief and Development Agency for Palestinian Refugees in the Near East, surveys the situation.
What is very important now is that the access that we have to the people becomes a daily occurrence, a simple occurrence, and that progressively we can expand our reach, because there's thousands of people still inside that have not received assistance.
Rebel forces reached an agreement last week to make the Yarmouk camp a fighting-free area. The UN says it has distributed more than 6,000 parcels in Yarmouk since mid-January, but it's a level that falls well short of the needs of the 18,000 residents after months of hunger and deprivation. Humanitarian efforts in Syria have been hampered by fighting and by combatants on both sides, who often try to block deliveries to areas held by their opponents. There have been rising reports of death and sickness from malnutrition by doctors in those areas. Yarmouk was established in the Damascus suburbs in the late 50s to accommodate Palestinian refugees already in the area.
Afghanistan has deployed hundreds of troops to the eastern Kunar province after the Afghan Taliban killed 21 soldiers in an assault on a Sunday. The violence comes ahead of presidential elections that are due to be held in April.
Afghanistan deploys hundreds of troops to eastern Kunar province after the Afghan Taliban killed 21 soldiers in an assault on Sunday. The attack took place as U.S. and NATO forces withdraw from Afghanistan ahead of a year-end deadline, shifting the bulk of the fight against the Taliban and other militants to Afghans. One soldier suspects a foreign spy helped insurgents kill the soldiers.
This attack was a tragic one. I am so sorry for my colleagues who lost their lives. I believe 100% that one of their friends from their base was behind this attack. Perhaps he was a Pakistani spy or whoever. Otherwise, it was impossible to martyr them while they were all asleep at 3 a.m.
In Kabul, funeral services are held for those killed. Analysts say while Afghan security forces have made great strides, doubts remain about whether they can keep the Taliban at bay. With no security pact signed by the government, it's also unclear if the U.S. and allied nations will keep a small force in Afghanistan after 2014 to support Afghan forces.
Opposition activists have erected roadblocks across parts of the capital, Caracas, halting transportation in an attempt to escalate the ongoing political standoff. Now, demonstrators manning barricades in a suburb in eastern Caracas said on Monday that they would not end the blockade until safety improved in one of the most violent countries in Latin America.
The conflict in Venezuela claims another life. Jimmy Vargas died in Táchira from an injury to the head. Vargas was reportedly observing a protest from his balcony. In Caracas, anti-government protesters remain in the streets. Barricades are a constant.
We have to protest peacefully, and the only peaceful means we have is by closing the streets. We don't have guns. We only have whistles, noisemakers, flags, and our hearts.
Much of the recent unrest also focuses on the jailed opposition leader, Leopoldo López. His wife, Lilian Tintori, says her husband has been cut off.
He is completely isolated. He is shut in a dungeon. They don't let him leave, and the treatment is minimal.
Tintori, who has accompanied López in many of the protests, says the government's attacks are baseless.
As a woman, as a wife, and as a mother, I am convinced we are living under a dictatorship. Leopoldo is unjustly imprisoned. None of the charges he is accused of are real.
Still, the government has its supporters. Thousands of motorcyclists drove through the streets Monday to show support for President Nicolas Maduro.
What Comrade Nicolas Maduro can count on is that the Iron Horses are demonstrating civic behavior, peace, tolerance, and it is done within a legal context, within the Constitution and within the law.
At least 13 have died in the unrest, which has become the biggest challenge to Maduro's 10-month-old government.
That story wraps up our bulletin for you this afternoon. Join me at 9 p.m. for more in-depth analysis of what's happening in the world today. Many thanks for your absolutely lovely company. I'm Kamene Goro, and do have yourself a splendid afternoon.
Newline Limited, your one-stop shop for elegant and comfortable office furniture. Newline responds to your expectations for office furniture in a modern language. We offer a 5-year warranty period including unit transfers within Nairobi. For more information, visit our showroom at Chester House, Loiter Street, Nairobi. Newline Limited, your success partner.
Floma, professional makeup.
Does your exterior complement your interior? Everyone needs a home that is inspired by nature. At Yenbo Limited, we offer durable, energy-efficient and affordable UPVC windows in attractive colors. Visit us at Wall Street Business Park off Mombasa Road. Yenbo UPVC windows, your desire, our challenge.
New Line Limited, we offer current, stylish, state-of-the-art kitchen and wardrobe appliances tailored to suit your preference. We offer unit transfers within Nairobi. Let your kitchen stand out today by visiting us at Chester House, Loiter Street. Your comfort and satisfaction comes first.
Floma, professional makeup.